Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DC Movie and TV Daily. Yes, is Supergirl in the Suicide Squad? Lots of rumours. A scooper called Daniel RPK reckons he knows the plot for the Suicide Squad. Everybody thinks they know a lot of things about DCEU movies and the DC world of movies, but do they? I don't think they know them exactly. Apparently, today was the day that James Gunn and his star-studded cast were going to have a table read, but James Gunn corrected us on Twitter and said, as usual, these rumours are inaccurate, and I've already had a fantastic table read today. So, according to Daniel RPK, the team go on a mission to save a powerful monster that is being used by some kind of colonel or whatever, right? Now, what if it's not a monster? Now, there were rumours of Supergirl being introduced in this movie, and that might be the reason we haven't heard very much on the Supergirl movie thus far, because if she is being introduced in the Suicide Squad, they may want to wait and nearer to that film's release to start hyping the fans up about her movie. I actually believe that Supergirl is in the Suicide Squad movie, but according to rumours, who isn't in this movie? It seems like everyone's in this movie. Of course, it could be Martian Manhunter. It could be another version of Doomsday. Yes, Doomsday is a monster, is an alien monster. Why can't it be Doomsday? Could it be that, in fact, the Doomsday from Batman v Superman survived? Or is it the actual Doomsday? It could be the real... Zack Snyder always said that there was another Doomsday out there and that his Doomsday from BVS wasn't the Doomsday from the comics, right? So that's all very, very interesting. So really, you could take your pick. And that's if Daniel RPK has got this scoop right, of course. And Daniel RPK's scoops are not very accurate. He's very interesting. I mean, definitely, if you ever read anything on We've Got This Covered, don't believe a word of it. It's absolute. They never get anything right. Simple as that. I can't remember the last time we didn't get this covered. That's what I'm going to call them. Got something right. But the rumour was Supergirl for a very, very long time. The Suicide Squad movie does go into filming very, very soon. It's actually one of the DCEU movies that starts filming this year. James Gunn's come in, he's got his cast in, and he promises some big announcements very, very soon. Could one of those announcements be an announcement of the casting of who's going to play Supergirl? There's some very exciting things going on. And because it's James Gunn, some very big time actors want to be in this film. So once all this is announced, and we still don't know who Idris Elba is playing, of course, could be the Martian Manhunter. Who knows? Could be the voice and the body of King Shark. Who knows? But it is going into proper production and filming. They've had the table read, which means very, very soon they're going to be going out there on location, on the sets, filming it. We will be getting the pictures, unofficial or official. Who cares? Don't start complaining because there's leaked photos. Get over it. Apparently, there's some leaked footage from the Joker movie. I've seen the test screening, of course, a 90-minute one, but I haven't seen the leaked footage. I don't really want to see the leaked footage. It doesn't really interest me. Some people will, because it's probably the biggest comic book movie of this generation. Everyone is very intrigued about this movie. And still, though most critics love this movie, a couple of critics couldn't help but say, I hope this doesn't entice a copycat. Don't you mean you hope it does because your twisted little political mentality can then blame this film and then this film can have negative publicity? I think that's what you really mean, isn't it? Anyway, the Joker movie isn't going to incite anyone to do anything. It's a cautionary tale as well. And a cautionary tale means it's done in a way to say to you, this isn't something really you want to do because the person in question isn't going to win anything in the end of the day. This is a very sad story, how society lets down people suffering with mental health, how governments let people down who suffer with mental health. This isn't glorifying mental health. This isn't saying if you're suffering with mental health, you should be the Joker. That's not what it's doing. And by the end of this film, you'll be thinking, oh my God, if you are suffering, I better go and get some help here. I do not want to end up like Arthur Fleck. So it's a magnificent film, and everyone is saying so. So it'll be very interesting how many more film festivals it will win. Maybe it won't win anymore, but it's won the main one. The Venice Film Festival is the first film festival. It's the most important film festival. So even if it doesn't win anymore, I do not want to hear the media going, didn't win this one, didn't win that one. Doesn't matter. It's won the main one. For a DC or a superhero movie to win the Venice Film Festival, the Golden Lion, the Joker roared away with the Golden Lion, and isn't that fantastic? So they can never take that away from him. So someone was saying also on Twitter, I'm on Twitter quite a lot, at Movies TV Mad, if you want to follow me and continue the conversation. Someone was saying, oh wow, this is amazing if Joker movie wins an Oscar and Joaquin Phoenix wins the Oscar, and someone says, well, what about Black Panther? That was nominated. It won. It was nominated for Best Picture. We all know that Black Panther wasn't nominated and didn't win because it was a great movie. We know the real reason, right? It was the real reason why Whoopi Goldberg won Best Supporting Actress for Ghost, and Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, who both delivered fantastic performances, weren't considered for Oscars, right? Everyone who should have a fair crack of the whip, no matter where you're from, who you are, but it should be based on what you do on the film and nothing else. And that's my point. So don't go talking to me and comparing Black Panther's Oscar noms and Oscar wins with what Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips. Now, Todd Phillips has a plan for the Black Label, and he's been talking about that. And although Warner Brothers said to him initially, make this movie first, I think there's no question this is going to be the most successful in terms of box office R-rated film of all time. People are going to come in and watch this movie out of intrigue. They're going to go back again and back again. This is the event of this generation. This is the event of, the superhero genre. This is massive. And as I said at the start of the year, I told you that Avengers Endgame wasn't the biggest event of this year. It was the Joker movie. And it's proving to be so. The plaudits, the awards, seeing Joaquin Phoenix standing there smiling at press tours with Todd Phillips, because Joaquin doesn't like public events. He's a very shy dude, but he looks happy. And for the first time in his professional life, he seems at peace with himself. And for me, this is an amazing thing to see. He talked about this film being a dedication to his brother. The performance he gave was for his brother. His brother wanted him to become an actor. He did it for him. His brother couldn't fulfill his potential, but he has fulfilled his potential for both himself and his brother. It's very, very emotional if you think about losing your brother at such a young age, and to think what he's been through. And he suffered with depression and mental health and alcoholism and drug abuse and a lot of things. And I mean, who wouldn't with the history that he's got? So he's an amazing individual. He seems like a lovely man, but a very, very talented one who dared to take a gamble with his career to be in a DC movie, whether you like it or not. It's still a DC superhero, no, a comic book movie, right? Not superhero, but a comic book movie. They're, critically acclaimed highbrow actors like this don't really take lead roles, right? Yeah, you get your Marlon Brandos doing Jor-Els and your Jesse Eisenbergs doing Lex Luthors and your Jeremy Irons playing Alfred, but very rare. I mean, I think I can only think of one, and maybe you can think of others down in the comments below. And that's Christian Bale as Batman Bruce Wayne. He was going places already. I mean, the Machinist, lots of other performances, American Psycho. So this guy was going places. He didn't have to do Batman, but somehow Christopher Nolan convinced him to do it, and he did it. And so it's wonderful, really exciting. And now my throat's going to go again. Excuse me about that. So I want to talk about the Snyder Cut, because I don't really talk about the Snyder Cut very much. And I've disappointed myself, because this is the reason I started up these videos, to talk about DC, to talk about mainly the DCEU. and I've lost focus. And as excited as I am for the future of DC Films, Black Label, and the DCEU, and before I start on the Snyder Cut, people are starting to make whispers and rumblings that the more successful the Black Label gets, it will convince Warner Brothers to do away with the DCEU. The Batman in 2021, most probably The Flash in 2021, Wonder Woman 84 next year, Birds of Prey next year. Do you really think they would shrink their kind of franchise down? Of course they wouldn't. That's absolute nonsense. So once upon a time, there was a film called Justice League. It was going to continue from Batman v Superman and Man of Steel, and the fans who loved those films, and there's millions around the world, yes, millions, were very, very excited. Then Zack Snyder announced that he was stepping down because he thought he could carry on after the tragic events that surrounded his daughter's Autumn's death, but he couldn't carry on. We felt very bad for him, and he said he brought his good friend Joss Whedon in. I still have any doubts that they're actually friends, but there you go. He couldn't manage anymore, so he brought Joss in. Of course, they were all lies, and this was all perpetuated by Kevin Sugihara. We found out that Joss Whedon and Kevin Sugihara cut the man's films to bits. And of course, Jeff Johns played his part. Jeff Johns made a very interesting statement during the filming of Justice League when Zack was involved. And this is what he said, people who say that the DC Comics universe is more darker than Marvel are wrong. The DC universe is very colourful and very bright. And he was saying things along those lines. And he said a couple of other words that I can't remember. But basically, he turned the thing around on his head. And when he first said that, I kind of thought, well, he's got a point. It's not all dark, but there are elements of the DC universe that are a lot dark. So Jeff Johns played his part with what happened there. But again, when you look at all these cooks spoiling the broth together, pulling in different directions, what was going to happen? We know. So we know the circumstances, and it's been nearly 2 years now, and there's no sign of this film being released. Now, interestingly enough, and I'm sure you've heard about this, the fan that went to a convention and spoke to Jason Aquaman, what's his bloody name off? Jason Momoa. I'm no good at names. Anyway, yeah, Jason Momoa was asked, so he goes, 2 words that will freak you out. He said, yes, I think it's done, and I wish they would leak it. What does he mean by that? I assume he means he wishes Zack Snyder and his team would leak the film. If that was to happen, it would be very hard for Zack to work in the industry again. Now, even if he leaks it and he says it wasn't me, someone got hold of it at Warner Brothers or at my production company, no one's going to swallow it. He certainly wouldn't work for Warner Brothers again. I mean, maybe he'll never work for Warner Brothers anyway again, but who knows? Who knows? But the point being, as much as I would love to see it leaked, I'd love to download it somewhere and watch it on this big 55-inch 4K TV. I don't want to see Zack get himself in trouble, and I think patience is the key now. I do think less people are talking about it online. The fans are always talking about it. Now, an interesting thing, Dave Pinar and someone else went to the Disney Expo, the Disney Fan Expo, which was a couple of weeks ago. You know, I think he wore a top or he held something up saying release the Snyder Cut, and everyone was ignoring it. And I think John Aaron Garza made a point, an interesting one, whether it's true or not, that the mainstream audience don't know anything about the Snyder Cut and they don't really care. Now, John's hit on something here, very, very interesting. A lot of them have probably heard about it. But listen, as I said to John on Twitter, if I had a wife and I tried to convince you she was worth a shag because you had a fitter wife and I wanted to shag her, you wouldn't be convinced, would you? The point is, most of the mainstream audience don't really care about Release the Snyder Cut. We're in the bubble. We're fighting for it. So how do we convince them? It's a very difficult thing to do. All we can do, the things we're doing are great because of what the Snyder campaign's been doing. It's been in mainstream media. You can't force people to care about something they don't care about. But do you think some of the director's cuts that come out had a national campaign? No. The circumstances to this film are very, very different. So we keep on fighting. We send our Snyder dollars and we don't give up. Even if they do not say anything for the next 12, 18 months, 24 months, It doesn't matter. We know the truth. We know in their vaults there's an epic version of Justice League. And in the end, we're going to knock their wall down. Not literally, but we're going to knock their wall down. We're going to keep on shining light. Zack will keep on releasing news and tidbits about what was in the movie and other people who worked on the movie as well. It's going to be okay. Stop fighting with each other. Don't fight Warner Brothers. Just send the message that what happened, what was done to Zack and what was done to this movie is wrong. And we demand that we see this film. Now, finally, I want to bring up this extensive reshoot thing again. Not necessarily about anything. You know what did have extensive reshoots? Actually, the whole film was reshot. Superman the movie. Yes, I want to talk about Superman the movie and Tom Mankiewicz and what happened with that film. A very similar thing, really, to what happened to Zack Snyder's Justice League, but in a more positive way. So imagine, originally James Bond director Guy Hamilton was going to direct Superman the movie. He'd already done some flying, terrible flying, which Donna was absolutely shell-shocked about. He just went, that's it. But anyway, right, they were shooting in one country, but basically, because Brando was going to be, they were shooting in Italy, right? So because Bertolucci and Brando were still being sought after by Italian authorities for The Last Tango in Paris, they had to leave. And because it was a lot cheaper back then to film in the UK, that's what the Salkinds decided to do. But the problem was Guy Hamilton was a tax exile, which I don't exactly know what it means, but he could only spend a certain amount of time in the UK a year. So he couldn't do the movie. Basically, they had to decide Brando or Guy Hamilton. And obviously, they said, Guy, you have to go because we've got Brando, the biggest star in the world back then. We ain't sacrificing that. This is the guy who's going to sell this movie. I would argue that the name Superman would sell it too. But there you go. Big star, great actor. No question about that. So they brought in Dick Donner. So Dick Donner literally dumped everything that Hamilton did. The flying was so shit. I've seen some of it. It's shit, right? Not a lot of people have seen that, but I had I wouldn't say the honour, but I'm glad. It is interesting. And what happened was Tom Mankiewicz, who also rewrote many James Bond films, come in. Now, basically, Tom Mankiewicz was a good friend of Richard Dick Donner's. Unfortunately, this wonderful human being and talented writer is no longer with us. I think he died of cancer. And if you ever see Tom Mankiewicz interviews, he seems like such a soft and gentle individual. Anyway, he didn't want to do it at first, but Dick come up to him with the suit and persuaded him. And what happened was, literally, Tom rewrote the whole movie and Dick reshot the whole movie. Now, what Tom Mankiewicz did within the writing of that film, it was his idea that the Kryptonian spoke in this elegant, stilted, classical Shakespearean English. His idea. All the great stuff you see in Superman the movie is Tom's idea. And what a shame they sacked Donner for Superman 2, because him and Tom, Dick said this before, would have come up with a Superman 2, their own Superman 3, and even a Superman 4, Dick said. So, what a tragedy. What is it with DC films going through this? So, basically, that's the film that, if you talk about a story of extensive reshoots, the whole film was rewritten. The whole film was reshot. Don't forget, originally, Mario Puzo penned the story for Superman the movie. Now, Mario Puzo is the author of The Godfather, so massive, and that's probably more massive than Joaquin Phoenix doing the Joker, actually. The Godfather, for Christ's sake. A film I've actually never seen. I've never seen any of them. I should be embarrassed being a movie fan and having a YouTube channel. I'll get round to it eventually. I used to love gangster films, but then the brutality I was put off with it, the cruelty, but then I see Joker movie and I love it. So anyway, right, so the reason I'm talking about Superman the movie, because everyone seems to be scared of the word extensive reshoots these days. It isn't a big deal. I know we've had horrible things happen in terms of reshoots with Justice League. Rogue One was a positive one because it ended up being a better film with Tony Gilroy going in there to sort it out, right? And he wasn't even really credited in that film. But so that film was a mess according to Tony, and he went in and rewrote and directed it. But Superman the movie was totally rewritten and totally reshot And that ended up, okay, one of the great superhero movies in the history of DC, superheroes, and of course, the greatest, one of, no, Man of Steel fans, fellow Man of Steel fans, one of the greatest Superman films. I must watch my language. Equally as good as Man of Steel. That's what I'd say. But basically, so if that film could be one of the greatest films ever after being totally rewritten and reshot, next time you hear the word extensive reshoots, you shouldn't be so afraid.